Who's that guy?
Like you weren't gonna make it, man. I don't even know who he is. Yeah.
Who's that guy with the beard?
Pretty good.
Come on in. So we're live. So it should say like viewers start viewing and hey, how you doing? See you again. Hey, thanks for braving the rain and coming out to the Texas Realty Club. A lot of y'all look like y'all haven't been here before. How many of y'all this is the first time? A bunch of y'all, yeah. Cool. How many of y'all been to the social? Yeah, okay. So I'll tell you a little bit about us real quick, and then we'll get on with our speaker. We don't have a lot of time tonight, so I want to give him as much time as possible. But a little bit about the Texas Realty Club. We started a couple of years ago. There's a couple of the OGs in here right now. When we started just kind of chatting at a bar after work and talking about flip houses and rent houses and things like that, we evolved into this. We've been doing two things. We do this right here, which is our more formal arrangement where we bring in a guest speaker and he shares his experience and knowledge with us so that we can carry it on. This is all about education and networking. The other thing we do is the social. We do that once a month at La Brisa over in Lee City, right off of Westlake. Not the one in Bay Cliff, the one over here off 45. That one is super casual. So when you come to that, it's literally we just show up, people order drinks and food, and then we just talk real estate. It's pretty much as simple as that. This is the first workshop meeting of 2019, so I'm really glad we got a good crowd in here. I'm glad so many new faces in here. I hope you guys come back. We're hoping to do a couple of things this year different. We're hoping to get a new room. This is a cool room. The library's been real good to us. Unfortunately, our presenters usually want to use the overhead, and we want to film. And those two things contradict because we have to turn all the lights off to use the overhead in this room. So if anybody, there's two things you can help me with. One is if you know where a new room is somewhere in the area, anywhere within 10 miles of here probably is good. That would be great. We don't charge for anything. We don't sell anything. This is strictly a grassroots community group. So we like to keep everything as free as possible. We don't spend a whole lot of money on anything, a couple of refreshments and maybe some guacamole at the socials, and that's it. So free rooms are the best kinds of rooms, but if you can find cheap rooms, we may consider those as well. The other thing that you can help us with is speakers. So we have some pretty good speakers lined up for this year, but there's a few vacancies. So if you guys know of anybody or you're interested yourself, come get with me. Sometimes after here, reach out to me on social media or reach out to me via email. Okay? I think that's about it. Oh, I wanted to announce that we did start a website. So we haven't had a website yet at all. It's texasrealtyclub.com. It's just that simple. And you'll find all of our events will be posted there, and you can RSVP right there. So any kind of, and you can email me there too as well. It's pretty nice. I like to say so myself because I created it, and hopefully I can maintain it as good as I created it. So with all that said, I'm gonna go ahead and welcome Kevin Riles. Kevin Riles is the CEO of Kevin Riles Commercial. He's written 2 books. He is the Director of Community Development at Prairie View A&M. So this is an honor to have him here tonight speaking, and I hope you guys enjoy it. You know, give him a hand.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Robin has been after me for a couple months, and so I feel loved to finally be here. As soon as the break happened, the Christmas break, I got a text like, hey, you remember we talked a couple months ago? I want you to start off the year, so I feel honored, because usually the beginning of the year is when everybody says they're gonna dominate Earth, and they have their resolutions, and they're gonna own 3 million units this year, and things of that nature. So for me to be the quasi-motivational / informational speaker tonight, I'm much appreciative. So he told you my name. My name is Kevin Riles. I am just a little bit about who I am. I am a native of Houston. I grew up here in Houston, grew up on the southwest side. You know, that other city like Missouri City, grew up in Missouri City, offices in Sugar Land, went to Willow Ridge High School, and then I went away to college in Atlanta, and came back here to what I thought temporarily working for Exxon, and what I thought to be you know, just a temporary going back to Atlanta. And then I fell in love. Hold on, kids, y'all get it. Right, so the way I got into real estate is I'm an engineer, computer science, computer engineering major, working for Exxon Mobil, looking for my first house. Was looking for a traditional 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage, the 322. In Texas, I always say we have 2 rights in Texas, trucks and 322s. And so I had a friend of mine introduce me to another engineer who was an engineer by day, real estate agent by night. He said, "Why are you buying a 322? Why don't you buy a duplex?" And I said, I don't know. Why would I buy a duplex? He said, "You can live in one side and rent out the other." And so I bought a duplex, 2801 Wheeler, on the corner of Wheeler and Delano, 1 block away from Texas Southern's HPE building. And that was my foray into real estate investing. So I thought that I would have my real estate. I said, well, Craig, the guy that told me that particular property has his real estate license, so I'm gonna get my real estate license, and I'm gonna do it on the side as well. Well, you know how life takes you. Engineer turned real estate agent, it became a career for me. So for the last 20 years, I've been a full-time real estate broker. Started off on the residential side, and over the last 10 years, have moved over to the commercial side. So my business, just like the capability statement says, is a small boutique business. I was known as the foreclosure guy. My claim to fame in Houston real estate, at least amongst most older realtors, is I used to have the contract to list all the HUD foreclosures in Houston. So I used to list about 100 properties a month with that contract. So you see those numbers at 3,500 or whatever is on there. That's where those numbers came from. During the height of the foreclosure crisis, I listed foreclosures. And so how I got into commercial is a lot of those guys that bought my foreclosures would then come back to me and say, now I've gotten to my Fannie Mae bucket is filled up, my 20 properties. I don't know if y'all have gone over 20 Mae buckets or not. Or if I've gotten to my 10, I want to start buying multifamily, small multifamily. So I started brokering small multifamily. So my specialty is small multifamily, as defined by plus or minus 100 units. Out of the 6 apartment complexes that I sold last year, the average unit count was about 35 units. Right? I sold a 72, sold a 24, sold right at 100. So, and the reason I do that is a couple of reasons. One, from a business standpoint, Grubb & Ellis, Cushwake, HFF, all the big guys, they sell the 2 and 3 and 400. And I've sold larger unit counts before. Trust me, I will do them. So, you know, if you want to buy a larger unit count, let me know. But what I have found is they think the small stuff is kind of like beneath them, and I can eat real well as a broker. One of the things we learned in B school is chaos theory, and chaos theory says that when there's chaos in a market, if you can provide order to that market, you can take advantage of that market. So I'm trying to provide order to the small multifamily market here in Houston. So with that being said, I market to about 3,500 multifamily homeowners or property owners per month. And that's from duplexes all the way up to about 125 units. I send them something monthly, making calls and things of that nature. So I'm pretty active in that small multifamily market. The other reason I do that is I typically get to work with folks like yourselves. I don't mind working with institutional investors, but I grew up working with everyday folks that are just trying to build their wealth over time. And so I just feel comfortable in that market, providing them with big level expertise, even when they're buying smaller properties. So that's a little bit about me, a little bit about my company. My company is huge. It's me. It is my wife works with. She just came aboard last year to work with me full time. I have my team partner Eric Odom in the back there. I've known Eric since 6th grade, and he is my buyer's agent and kind of helps me generally as well. And then on occasion I'll have a virtual assistant help me kind of with some of my marketing stuff. Speaking of which, before I get into the education tonight, I send out, and that's one of the things that I guess got me here. I send out every Monday, I call it Multifamily Mondays, I send out a list of every multifamily or apartment complex on the market in Houston, whether it be my listing or not. Sometimes when I have my, not sometimes, when I have my listings, you'll see them at the top. And I do that as a service for people that don't have access to loop that or don't know how to coagulate all of the different. So if you want to be on that list, it's real fancy now. Constant Contact allows you to text and be added to the list. So that's that little note at the bottom on the front page there. You just have to text. It'll text you back for your email address and you're added. And if you like the information, great. If not, you can unsubscribe. I also do a weekly podcast called The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles. I'm on my 60th episode of The Real Estate of Life with Kevin Riles. And basically, I do this on the podcast. I do it video and I do it on Apple, iTunes, and Google Play. So if you search my name, if you're a podcast listener, Kevin Riles on iTunes or Google Play, The Real Estate of Life. And so I call it Real Estate of Life because I talk mostly about real estate, but I'm kind of a motivational guy, so a little bit about life as well. So this week, I'm talking to a client of mine who I've helped buy some funeral homes. He's in the funeral home business. We're going to talk about real estate and death. I'm a nerd. I like that type of stuff. So with that being said, Apartment 101. Apartment 101. How to invest in apartments. I've given this talk many times. I give it over the phone a lot of times when people call, just so I can get a sense of the room. How many of you own investment property right now, just in general? All right. How many of you own small multifamily already? All right. How many of you own big multifamily? Anybody? All right. I didn't want to leave the big folks out. They might have felt some kind of way. My stuff is big. Yours is not. All right. So at the offset, most of you, it seems like the majority of the room have at least one investment property. What I'm going to tell you is something that most commercial brokers may not tell you. Owning apartment complexes is not that difficult. It's the same thing as buying a single family house, right? So let me just get that out the way up at the front. The same analysis that you do to look at a single family investment is the same analysis you will do to look at an apartment complex, to evaluate an apartment complex. Do you need to know more terms? Yes, but due diligence, does it make money? Is everything working? Inspecting it, doing unit walks, it's the same thing you would do, you just have more than one unit, all right? Thank you very much, and I'm done. All right. So with that being said, you don't have to think of this as, oh my God, it has 4 units, or it has 8 units, or it has 70 units. It is the same process whether you're buying 10 units or you're buying 100 units, right? So there are a couple things that I want to go over. And I put some terms up on the board, but first and foremost, I kind of want to tell you kind of about the Houston market, and that'll allow me to kind of go over some of these terms. First and foremost, we live in a market that is HOT hot right now. Houston's multifamily market is hot. It is making deals harder to find. But my single family investors also tell me that is the same case. Right now it's hard to find a deal because everybody is HGTV and they're Property Brothers, which I love Property Brothers, watch it a little bit, but it makes the deals a little difficult to find. Everybody and their mom thinks they're a flipper. So with that being said, the good news is that we're in a strong market. The not so good news is that that has caused pricing to go up. So one of the things that I wanted to talk to, so as we go over Apartment 101, what I'm basically going to do is go over these terms. And I think by going over those terms, that will allow me to kind of introduce you to different concepts as far as apartment. One of the things that you will hear in apartment investing, so term number 1, if I was teaching, is CAP, C-A-P, CAP. Anybody know what CAP stands for? Cap rate. What does cap actually stand for? Capitalization. All right. Y'all win nothing. So capitalization rate. What does that mean? What does capitalization rate mean? So capitalization rate means it is a measure of value at any given set point. And that's very, very important. At a set point, at a certain time, at the end of the year, or at a quarter, or whatever the case may be. It is a measure of value. So I put the formula for value up there. NOI, which is net operating income, divided by cap rate equals the value. So why am I starting off talking about cap? As you look at multifamily apartments, investing in apartments, how do I measure the return on an apartment quickly to be able to compare one property to another? How do I measure that? I measure that by measuring the cap rate. And the cap rate measures how much net operating income is coming in. So which takes me to the second. I'm gonna flip back and forth between the two. Net operating income is literally what it means. It's the net operating income. I know, that's real smart, right? So what do I mean by that? You have your gross income, how much rent you're getting, subtracted all your expenses, and then you net out what you make at the end, right? Because at the end of the day, as an apartment investor or any investor, that net operating income is really what you're looking for. How much money am I gonna make? Now, cap rate does not take into effect how much debt you have on the property, right? It just says, if I bought this property cash, what would essentially be my quick return, right? And so, as I talk about caps in Houston right now, because of the type of properties I specialize in, which are older properties, I'll get to different classes in a second, cap rates for older properties or C-class properties, which I'll explain here in a second, are pushing down. So if cap rates are down, values are up. It's inverse, right? I know people I didn't come from a math class, but right, if cap rates are down, if you're seeing low cap rates, that means the values of the properties are up, right? And the reason you see that is because the fact that there's such a high demand for yield right now. Everybody's chasing a better yield than the stock market is giving them, right? So where can I place my money? And that's basic supply and demand that we've all taken at some point. The lower the supply, the higher demand, the higher the price. And so at the end of the day, cap rate is a measure, right? A measure. So in apartment investing 101, when you're looking at a property, you're looking at the net operating income. And you want to know, what does that mean if I'm looking at two different properties as far as net operating income? If those properties don't have the same number of units, they're not in the same part of town, they're not in the same condition, how can I compare those two properties from an income standpoint? And so what cap rate does is give you a quick measure to say, hey, if I bought this property at a 7 cap, it would be this value. If I bought this other property at a 7 cap, it would be this value. Which one is higher, which one is lower, right? So it's a quick measure. It is not the ultimate measure nor the only measure, but it's a quick measure. If you call my office and ask me about a multifamily property that I'm listing, 9 times out of 10, a commercial broker is gonna say, well, it's listed at $2.4 million and the cap rate, we listed it at a 6.5 cap. And that's why I'm going over cap very quickly, because as you start shopping for this, the brokers or people that or investors that own will say, oh, I think I want 7 cap for it. And so they might not even tell you a price. They just might tell you a cap rate. Well, in order for you to get a price, I need to operate. So can you send me the financials so I can calculate to see if that's correct, right? And so if you look at, and I'm gonna jump around a little bit, these are 2 actual properties that are on the market. I put their financials in my little packet here. If you take the one, the Scott Gray Real Estate, Scott and I have done some deals together. He has a property inside the loop. This is a 20-unit apartment complex here. You look down at the bottom, it says net operating income, $200,414. $200,414, all right? So if inside the loop, I didn't put pictures in here, but this place is decked out. I mean, travertine on top of travertine, gold dripping from the ceiling. I mean, it's really laid out. So the cap rates for A-class properties right now, which I would consider an A-class property, is around 5%, right? So 5%. So what you would do, if you call me and I was listing this property and I say, hey, we want to sell, our whisper rate is 5% cap, you would divide 5%, $200,000 by 5%, and that gives you $4 million, right? So if you notice on here, he doesn't even, it's so good right now in multifamily brokering, we don't have to give you a price anymore, right? We just say determined by market. You tell us what you want to pay and we may call you back, right? And so these 2 properties right here that I have on here are the financials. They don't have prices on them. It's not like single family where I want $200,000 for this property. I want, right now, it's so much demand that the brokers are saying, here are the financials, you tell me. And then we'll go back to the owner and say, hey, they offer the 4.5 cap, or they offer the 5.5 cap, right? We probably in the back of our minds know what we want, but that's how much the demand is. So just to give you an example, if you want to know, at 5 cap, assuming these numbers are correct, which we'll go over here in a second, this is a $4 million property. At 5.5 cap, this is a $3.6 million property. And at a 6 cap, this is a $3.3 million property. So you can see those changes in caps make huge differences, right? And because of the demand for product, stuff that used to sell for, say, a 6 cap, which is a low cap, by the way, right? They're pushing 4.75 caps, which beyond the scope of the Apartment 101, but it becomes hard to make money as a normal investor when the cap gets below 6, in my opinion, unless you're paying cash, right? Unless you're paying cash. So think of cap as how much return I'm gonna get. The lower that goes, right? The higher the price the seller gets, but the lower your return is. So right now to be a seller is an awesome thing. To be a buyer, maybe not so much, depending on where you get the deal from. All right, any questions about that? Yeah, you have to feel free to, this is free flow.
Okay, so the lower the cap rate,
The higher the price.
the higher the price, not so great for investors.
Not so, so
I know,
it depends on the
everything's
reason,
fine.
I don't wanna be absolute.
Yeah.
Depends on the reason you're investing. Some people do a 1031 exchange, I need to apply this money, I'm gonna play the appreciation game and not the cash flow game. I have a 4th unit under contract right now, inside the loop in the medical center. The reason they're buying that property is because Uncle Sam is whooping their butt, and they don't care as much about the cash flow, so they paid a little bit of a premium for a property because they actually kind of wanted to lose money. Not lose money,
Right.
They're gonna pay the appreciation game. So I don't wanna be absolute, but yeah, typically the lower the cap, investors we want double-digit caps, that's what we like.
I guess, is there a limit to how high a cap rate should go before that's a red flag?
Oh, good question. So if you see a 14 cap out there, you're like, what? 14 cap? Oh my God, yes, please. Can I? In this market, that just being 9.5, I'm wondering what's going on. Like it is real numbers. Which again, I'll get to actual versus in the games that people play as far as that's concerned. But no, regardless of the cap, you have to do your due diligence and see if the numbers are real, because owners and brokers will make up numbers.
I gotta be the one to bring it all the way back.
Okay.
So, where's the cap rate coming from? Like, what's calculated? I see function of price, but how?
So that's a good question. So people always say, well, where do you get the cap? Well, how do you know what's a good cap and what's a bad cap is what you're basically asking. Knowledge of the market, using a broker that knows the market, reading reports. You see the report, which I'm gonna go over here in a second, that these are readily available on the internet. A lot of the larger companies produce them. JLL produced this. By the way, if anybody knows JLL, I did put their logo on here. I just put mine, said compliments of. I don't want people to think I'm plagiarizing. Yeah, just thought I'd throw it out there. But, so there are cap rate surveys that are published quarterly in all major markets that'll tell you what the average caps are. But basically that's a function of knowing the market. There's no National Association of Cap Rates that you can call and say, what's the cap rate in Houston right now? It's just kind of what deals are trading for.
Okay.
Yeah.
But as far as what you're saying about the cap rate, basically if you had $1 million property, you paid $1 million for, and you're making $100,000 net operating
10%
income,
cap.
you're 10% cap.
Yes, sir.
So,
10 cap all day. And right now you would have people banging on your door to
yeah,
buy.
Lutonet's got a car wash advertised for 24.5 right now.
24.5 cap? If
Yeah.
I see that, then I think they either
Yeah.
calculated the cap wrong, cause I mean, and this is not an indictment, this stuff I've come to familiar over the last 10 years. Not everybody knows what cap rate is, and so that might be a cash on cash that they're calling, like people don't really know, some brokers don't know what it is, yeah. And then how can you, car wash, I do 60% multifamily, 40% other, and my other kind of is a hodgepodge of stuff, cash business, so show me the quarters, show me that 24%. All right, so cap rate, right? We got a little sense of, again, this class could be, hours and days long. So cap rate, net operating income, right? We're not gonna go over this because this really would be a math class, but IRR, you'll hear some of us in the business Just got my CCIM, which is Certified Commercial Investment Member, which is kind of like the CPA of commercial real estate. Got it last year, and one of the things that they bang us on are not just looking at cap rate as a measure of performance. So internal rate of return, or sometimes called the hurdle rate, is what does my dollar make once it's actually inside the investment, right? Cap rate tells me if I bought it cash and I made the money, then this is what my likely return is. Internal rate of return says once my dollar is churning, I bought it and I'm looking what is my return while my dollar is circulating within the investment. Why is that important? Is because internal rate of return is a measure that is not static. It is ongoing. Cap rate is how much did it make in the last 12 months. And this is the cap rate as of today. This is the cap rate. Internal rate of return can be calculated pretty much at any time, and it's telling me how my dollar is doing inside the investment. Again, beyond the scope of this, but you might hear it every once in a while, internal rate of return or hurdle rate. I'm gonna skip around. So I'm gonna go to pro forma versus actuals. Pro forma versus actuals. So if you look on the very last page in the back, this is another Inside the Loop deal that's on the market, just came to market actually today. 28 units, stabilized. I love our vocabulary, so just haven't done this for a while. Stabilized NOI, 318,398 on an annual basis. Stabilized meaning when it's stabilized. So my first question is, wait, is it stabilized now? Or are you selling me on when I get it stabilized, it'll be 318? So like little stuff like that means stuff, right? So that might not be the net operating income now. That might be once you put your magic dust on it and you're the greatest owner ever, and you implement all this stuff, and then born on a Tuesday, left-handed, boom, now it's stabilized and you can get that. So every owner wants to sell at its most optimum net operating income. So I printed this out because I like, this is Tom Wilkerson's Houston Income Properties. They kind of do their performance like this. I just like to play with the vocabulary because for you guys, you may look at this, you might just look at the NOI and say, okay, that's the NOI, and I'm good. But it gives you a good sense of kind of how we present properties. So with that being said, if you look down at the expenses, you'll see that he has December 17th through November 18th expenses. What we call that is a T12, trailing 12, right? What's happened in the last 12 months. And so long story short, what will happen is sometimes I won't sell a property at the end of the year. I'll sell it in March. So what happened from this March to the previous 12 March, so I can get a full year of what really happens. Because and what some brokers will do and some owners will do, they had a really good January, a really good February, a really good March. Okay, I want to put it on the market. I want you to annualize everything that happened in those first 3 months and make that how the property performed to show those numbers. You don't want to show when you have 50% occupancy in October, November, and December. So those are little tricks that you'll see. But long story short, pro forma is if everything is working like it's supposed to be, this is how much money you're making. That's what pro forma is, right? It is optimum conditions. Actuals should be actuals. In other words, what actually happened. So you will typically see on one side, pro forma, if everything is working like it's supposed to be, if you implement this, or if you manage it better, or if we had a capital expenditure last year, we had to replace all the air conditionings, but that's not gonna happen anymore. So this year, pro forma is optimal conditions, actuals are what actually happened. Then there's the thing, sometimes I'll see, and I've done this too when I list the property, modified actuals. Modified actual means I have almost all the information except for a couple of data points, so I'm gonna estimate on those data points, right? Modified actuals, I just sold 16 units that closed last week in Galveston, and they didn't have a property manager. Most people that buy a property in Galveston are gonna have a property manager. So I took their actuals and I added a property management fee. So I called them modified actuals because most people are gonna have a property management fee, and I would rather be a conservative broker and tell you most likely you're gonna want a property manager because it's in Galveston and you're buying from Houston. But if you don't, just take that fee out, right? So, and sometimes as brokers, talking about pro forma versus actuals, when I initially sold that property, the owner, 84-year-old guy, last property he's selling, literally sent me a box of receipts. Those were my financials. And so I had to, at least he had them in folders by month, so I had to have my virtual assistant I scanned it all in, sent it to her, and she calculated the expenses one by one by one, and I had to come up with the expenses. So with that being said, pro forma, you never really want to make decisions solely off pro forma. You can look at pro forma and say, yeah, hey, if I'm owning, if I own it, I think this is how I would run it, so I can kind of see what the potential are. At the end of the day, you really want actuals as much as you possibly can. But the market is so tight right now, some owners are like, that's the pro forma. I might give you some actuals, or annualizing my actuals is taking my best month and saying that's how it is all the time. So again, little things that you have to do. So any questions about pro forma versus actual? Keep me good on time. I'm a preacher's kid, so I'll keep talking.
You're good till about 8 o'clock, and then 8 o'clock, you may want to go into an open discussion.
Okay.
They're going to run us out here right after 8:30.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I'm not. If I go to 8 o'clock, then they're gonna be mad at me because
Yeah, okay.
I should finish in the next 15 minutes.
Kevin, you mentioned about the property management.
Yeah.
You said only in Galveston. Okay, so
No. I was saying with that particular property, the odds are most people would have a property manager because if they buy it from Houston, they're not gonna be running to Galveston. Well, you guys live out here, but most people would not be running to Galveston. They would want a property manager.
so you're suggesting that if you're in Houston not to get a
No. I suggest that's based on your own, as my grandma said, that's how the spirit leads you, and whether you want to deal with phone calls and all the other stuff that comes with it. I would rather manage the property manager than manage the property. I'm at that stage.
Okay.
As far as my, I have no desire to manage property. So, yeah. But that's 5 to 6 to 7% of rents that I'll be giving up to do that. So, I have one client the client that sold that, they were trying to manage it from Sugar Land, and they just tapped out. That's why they sold it. As a matter of fact, they just couldn't. And I said, well, just hire a property manager. Okay, no, we they were engineers and just had to be there, so they'd rather sell it. So, and then they also started investing in triple net investments as well, or commercial like retail centers. Pro forma versus actuals. Any questions?
So pro forma is just basically that's your budget.
Yeah, you could look at it like that.
Budget so much for 1 year, then this is what you're.
Pro forma is optimal conditions. If I'm at 75% occupancy, I'm gonna do pro forma at 90%, right? But right now it's at 75%. But I'm telling you, this pro forma, these are my assumptions when I do my pro forma. Usually you'll see notes that says, I'm assuming this, I'm assuming that. If I know there's some capital expenditure that needs to happen, then I'm assuming, I'm putting those in my pro forma.
Is the term only used for income?
No, it's income and expenses. Yeah. Your pro forma profit and loss statement, basically. Right? And tell me if I'm hitting, because usually when I go over these terms, I get through like one-on-one, because these terms basically make me explain other stuff. All right. Now, you take one of these properties, and let's say I specialize, let's go ABC. I'll give you the technical definitions. I'm going to give you how we use it. So in apartment investing, or really in commercial real estate in general, there are different property classes: A class, B class, C class. A class, B class, C class. A class is essentially new properties. Properties less than 10 years old, typically, is considered an A class property. B class property is usually between 10 and say 20 years old. I'm being real general. It depends on the class of property, right? C class is everything else, right? And then D and F, no, I'm just joking. It's only A, B, and C. However, there are some D's out there, which let you know. Right?
D be the hood property, right?
Yeah, no, well, sometimes, yeah, you're right, but sometimes I've seen D inside the loop in Montrose, right? It just depends on the level of work. So to explain that, to that point, A properties, what you will hear people say is, so for instance, these two properties right here, specifically the Scott Gray property, right? That property is an older property. It was built in the 60s, right? But it's been completely and totally renovated. Like, it's like, when I looked at the pictures, I wanted to live there. It's awesome. So what you will say, technically that's a C property by definition, but you will hear people say it's B plus or A minus because it's been renovated to a today's standard. Or they may say it's a C class property renovated to an A. Or they may say it's a B plus property, but it's in an A area. So what we start doing is we start using A, B, and C for area, for the condition of the property, and things of that nature. But A technically means a newer property. But you will hear us say it's a property because they took it to the studs and started over, even though it was technically built in 1965. All right. B properties are the same. You'll hear us say, well, technically it's a C because of the age, but it's been renovated to a B standard. B standard means I might not have done travertine, I might have just done really nice top, right? And puts a kiss of granite on it and things of that nature, right? And then C typically means age, 60s, 70s, and I'm kind of copacetic. I might have renovated, but it's what I call safe, decent, clean, right? It's not, oh my God, it's safe, decent, clean. Formica, stick and peel, like C class, right? And so what I always tell people from an investment standpoint, so this is apartment 101, is that in my opinion, the best investment, if you can find them, are C class apartment complexes at the end of the day. And the reason I say that is because typically your C class is almost recession proof. One, and what I mean by that is typically what happens is this. The economy's doing really, really well. A class is whooping butt. B class is doing okay. C class is kind of all right, right? But when the economy does, so about 3 years ago, all these A class apartment complexes y'all see around the Beltway and along 45, they were sucking wind. They were giving out free flat screen TVs, kids, they were giving anything, blood, anything they could, 3 months rent to get you in the door, right? Taking rent concessions. And what happened was, because the economy wasn't doing well, people that couldn't afford an A, guess where they stayed? In the B's. People that couldn't afford the B's, guess where they stayed? In the C's, right? And people that couldn't afford the C's, D's, or just, wherever, I don't know. Then when the economy gets better, guess what happens? D's go to the C's go to the B's, and the B's go to the A's. Guess who never really loses a whole lot of occupancy if you have a decent product? C, right? I came up with that on my own. It's probably somewhere in economics, but I feel good about it. I need it right now, right? So to me, now what you may have to do during a recession is discount rent, right? So because if I'm coming down, I'm looking for cheaper rent. So you may have to concess on rent, but at the end of the day, it's in the middle of the pack. And so to me, those are the best opportunities. A, to me, is usually institutional and or you can withstand from an economic standpoint any kind of downturn or change in the economy. A-class properties across commercial property types are more sensitive to the economy, right? Because they're newer, they're better, they're more expensive, things of that nature, right? The great thing about C-class properties right now is there's never been a time where in Houston where you're getting better rents on a C-class property. When I first really started doing multifamily hard and heavy, C-class property rents were like 70 cents to 75 cents a square foot, plus or minus, right? Right now they're $1.30. That's been in like 6 years, right? $1.30 a square foot. Pretty much no matter where you go in Houston, it's gonna be plus or minus $1, but most likely right now, $1.10, $1.20 a square foot, right? That means 800 square foot apartment, I'm getting $1,000 in rent. That sounds about right, right? Even out here, I'm probably getting a little bit more, but I'm just saying, right? It's plus or minus $1. So what I'm saying is that if recession hits, things go bad, maybe that goes back down to $1.10, right? But again, I'm still occupied. I'm still servicing my debt if I took on debt. So that's why I'm a big fan, if you can find them, of C-class properties. The other thing, outside the scope of this, I think, because this is what I'm doing, I have 2 lots that I'm about to build 2 duplexes on. there is not enough affordable new construction multifamily in the greater Houston area. And what I mean by that, when I say affordable, people always think I mean like, like bad stuff. No, I'm talking about like $1 a square foot, $1.25 a square foot, safe, decent, clean, just happens to be new type stuff, right? There's just not enough of it. So to me, I've been telling people, especially since the market has been kind of getting up there, that is the next opportunity, is to develop duplexes, quads, sixplexes. Because I can tell you now, if I'm selling you a 10 or a 20 or a 30 or a 40 or a 50 unit in Houston right now, that property was built before 1985. There's no new product in under 50 units in Houston, period, point blank. So what's that mean? That means that, and when I say Houston, I mean Greater Houston, out here as well, right? Right now, code-wise, it makes it difficult to do it in Houston, but in some of these, like Texas City and Lamar and League City and things like that, you can still do that, right? You can still do that. So to me, that's an opportunity for folks is to develop multi-unit property, small multi-unit property. So just thought I'd put that out there. Any questions about A, B, and C? All right. CapEx. CapEx. Capital expenditures. Capital expenditures. What does that mean? Capital expenditures are things that you will do to a property. You can do this on your single families as well, that have an economic value, life value of more than a year, right? So if you go in and you fix a leaky toilet, that's just a repair. If you go in and replace the toilet, that's a capital expenditure. Does that make sense? All right? If you go in and fix a broken window or window pane, that's a repair. If you go in and replace all the windows, that's a capital expenditure, right? And so the reason I point that out is because some mom and pops, in order to reduce their net operating income for tax reasons, they will expense their capital expenditures in their profit and loss statements.
It ain't gonna fly. It's not gonna fly though.
Well, depends. If they're not trying to sell it, it doesn't really matter, right? They're trying to reduce their taxable income, which I understand. I got to do my tax now. If I can write off my tolls, I'm gonna write them off, right? But I need them, right? And so, but I always tell people I wish I could get to sellers that do that a year before, so I can say, hey, all that capital expenditure work that you did, don't write that up. Don't put that in your profit and loss this year. Put that over, and I'm being real technical here. Put that over in your balance sheet, which is where it really is supposed to go. All right, and I'm being financial kind of CPA nerd, but at the end of the day, it reduces your income. And so if I'm trying to sell your property, I need your net operating income to be at its highest point, right? So that I can apply that cap rate and get you the highest value. If you write off all your new air conditioning units, and all your new sinks, and all your new flooring, I understand from a tax standpoint that's advantageous because my net operating income is going to be lower, right? But when I go to a buyer and say, hey, I want you to buy this, he's like, well, no, that's calculated out to be a 5 cap. No. What he did was he put all the ACs, show me, right? So what I do a lot of times when I get financials from an owner, I ask them, have you done any capital expenditures in the last year? Oh yeah, we did this, and this. Can you give me the receipts of those so I can back those out of your repair number, right? That's the Uncle Sam game versus the sale game. So you just need to be aware that we call that CapEx, right? And capital expenditure is a long-term repair. The same thing when you do, I'm not a CPA, somebody might be a CPA, but the same thing when you do your single family on your schedule, whatever the schedule is, I forgot. All right, I'm not a CPA, I just play on TV. But, so capital expenditure, knowing that is important. Now, as far as, and I'm, as we would say in the tradition of African American church, as I come to a close, at the beginning of this, I put this reporting, and this is from the second quarter of last year, but things really haven't changed all that much. As far as the market is concerned, the market is hot. It is. And so I'm not one of those ones that will tell you that it's easy necessarily to find a deal right now, because it's even challenging for me to find product to market right now. But I'm still doing deals, right? And the reason I'm still doing deals is because I'm always searching for deals, and deals are still getting done. I think people are having to redefine what a deal is. especially if you're an experienced multifamily investor, you're looking for those 9 and 10 caps that we used to have like 3-4 years ago, and those 9 and 10 caps are now 8 caps, right? Still a good cap, but you know, if you grown up thinking I'm gonna get 10, 11, 12 cap, and all of a sudden everything's trading for 8, you seem like the market is too expensive. And for some of it, it is. And so I think if you guys are thinking about getting a multifamily investment, it's very, and it was, whether it's me or not, and I really mean this, I think it's important that you get with either an experienced investor who's done multifamily before, or you get with a broker that understands multifamily, because you can get yourself in a little bit of a hiccup by overbuying on your first deal, and you're, please everybody pay their rent. Please everybody pay. You don't want to be in that situation where you need to be running at 90%, 95%, maxed out rents, $1.35 to just service your debt. You don't want to be in that situation. That's a passable deal to me. What I'm finding though, are people are finding deals in tertiary markets around Houston now, which are the Lake Jacksons, my family's from Bay City, Texas, old Angleton, Clute, Conroe, you know, basically everything outside of Houston. Now, with that being said, are deals still being done in Houston? Yes, they are. So I'm not saying that they're just a little bit harder to find. So with that being said, cap rate, we got a good understanding of what cap rate is. Net operating income, good understanding, NOI. Internal rate of return, what my dollar is making inside the investment. Didn't go over RUBS. So on some of the older properties, they're single meter. It means there's one electricity meter, or there's one water meter, or there's one meter for a particular utility. And so what owners are starting to do, or they've been doing it in the larger properties, but even in the smaller properties, it's very expensive to take, say, 24 units with one electricity meter and either sub-meter those or split that electricity out. That's an expensive thing to do, right? So what people are doing is they're doing RUBS, which basically, and just maybe because it's late, the acronym just left me. Thank you, ratio utility billing system. Thank you. Appreciate that. I owe you something. And so at the end of the day, what they do is they average out the utility bill and they bill the tenant. So it used to be the owner would just eat that. That would be on their expense statement. And electricity is $10,000 a month. I'm paying $10,000 a month. So now they're taking that $10,000 a month and saying, I have 24 tenants. I'm going to basically ration that per tenant and then send the tenant a separate bill. So they pay their rent, then they get a utility bill or a RUBS bill that says your portion of the utility electricity is $100 this month. And so what does that do? That basically makes all your rent or more of your rent profit, because now they're sharing in the cost of that utility. And they do that with water as well, right? There are consultants out there that can show you all the calculus behind how they do that. Now you can sub-meter and you can re-meter. It's just an expensive thing, especially it's hard to do unless you're buying a property that's completely empty, and then it's much easier to do a re-meter or a sub-meter when a property is empty than when people are living in it. All right? RUBS, A, B, and C, pro forma versus actuals, capital expenditures, and then again, you get your value by dividing the net operating income over the cap rate. So, any questions, Apartment 101, anything I didn't answer, stuff about the market, that's kind of my spiel tonight.
How do you feel the market's moving right now?
It is expensive.
Yeah.
And tight. I won't say it's bubblish, but you know, last year at the end of the year, I sold a 72-unit apartment complex for, luckily it flooded and had been renovated, but I sold it for $65 a door. And I know 2 years ago that was a $45 a door deal. 2 years ago, not 5 years ago. So I get a lot of calls when I have a decent amount of multifamily listings from outside capital, New York, Toronto, and California. I don't know what it is about Toronto, but I get calls from Canada. And that capital is coming here and it's competing with this capital. Again, demand, supply, up, so, yeah.
On like recent deals that you've done, what do you see as the spread, what's like the spread between cap and debt? I guess it depends on what type of, asset it is, but kinda, what are the spreads you're seeing between whatever they're closing their financing at versus whatever the actual cap rate was?
So the 72 unit I closed at the end of the year, that was an off-market deal. So let me back up. Because I'm marketing all the time, sometimes we'll come up with deals that that I can call. I know you're looking for a specific type of apartment complex or whatever the case may be. So I'll call you and say, hey, I have this deal. You want it, to take a look at it before we put the eyes on it, basically. So that was an off-market deal. He actually got an 8.5 cap for that deal, which was pretty decent. But he did the Freddie Mac small balance program, which is another seminar, which is different types of financing. But 20% down, and his rate was 5 1/8, 5 1/4. So that was a pretty good spread.
Had a balloon payment?
Yeah, all commercial, usually a 5-year. It's cast out for 20. Actually, the Freddie Mac program will cast out for 25, but they all do on a 5. Yeah. But every type of commercial financing, true commercial financing, is going to be cast out for 5 or 7, because they want to participate. If rates go up in 5 years, they want to participate in that. So very seldom do you get it fixed on a commercial deal. Any other questions?
You said you're thinking about doing, well, not thinking about, but you have.
I got my plans approved.
They're approved?
Yeah.
Inside the move, or?
In South Park,
Okay.
Sunnyside area. So
Okay.
I've had 2 lots over there for a long time, and decided to do that with the auspices of doing it other places with some other types of programs the city used to have, but I want to do it on my own dollar first, just so that I've been doing this a long time, and from a reputation standpoint, I just want to make sure I have a good product before I put it out there. So.
And from a cost basis,
Oh.
to pay back on that is gonna be?
My cash on cash return on that, if my pro forma. My pro forma cash on cash return is like 25%. It's right now, building something from scratch and renovating something are almost part and parcel of the same.
And that's what I'm looking at, that's what I'm seeing as well.
What are you
That's what
looking
I'm
at for
considering.
cost per square foot to build today?
I am looking at right now, the best bid I have is like $85 a foot. Now, I'm not building the Taj Mahal, I'm building decent, safe, clean.
But on slab? Or
No,
on
pier and beam.
pier and beam?
Yeah, I like pier and beam, it's a personal thing. All the houses I've sold, I started off the real estate inside the loop, and every house, my first houses that I was selling, they were all pier and beam, and they were built in 1930s, and their foundations were still relatively in decent shape, so, not all the time. So, yeah.
I don't know if it's like, okay to ask, but do you actually invest like, so right now in multifamily, or do you
Good
kind of
question.
separate yourself, or what's?
So I've been separating myself. So my business story is this. Full time, started in 1998. Regular real estate, selling houses, this and the other. Got the HUD contract, went from 0 to hero, and literally in a weekend went from 7 listings to 157 listings over 2 weekends. For 5 years, managed that process. Then Armageddon hit 2006, 2007, 2008. And this is all of my podcasts, by the way. I tell my stories. My wife says, tell all your business in your podcast. But anyway, long story short, even though I was selling foreclosures, business wasn't, people weren't buying at the same clip. So I had all these foreclosures. So in order to survive, because I actually practiced real estate, I wasn't just buying it, I sold off all my investment properties. So my office building, had a couple single families, this and the other. And so fast forward now to 10 years, I have bought an office condo, and I have land holdings because of what I want to do. I have lots and some acreage and things of that nature. but no, I haven't invested in multifamily because I want people to see me as a broker and not competing against them or trying to make money on the side, things of that nature. But with that being said, this year, I plan to start a fund in order to take advantage of opportunities. Because sometimes even when I go out to try to broker a deal, if I had money backing me, then I could take down a deal as a group. And so I've had so many people. You really can't get started in bigger multifamily with $25,000. You need to be kind of at the 150, 200 range to kind of even play in that 25 to 50 unit range. And so I have so many people that call me to have 25 or 50 or 17 that, I think can participate and still do well. So that's why I plan to do a fund this year. And my blood type is not.
Quick question, your vision for, because, and you may have seen me, because I agree with you 100%. I think, being able to fill that need for something new, something nice, something safe, something clean for people who are hardworking individuals.
Yeah.
So what's your vision for that? Like, are you, duplex quads, okay, are you gonna sell them so they actually get that ownership, or are you talking about renting, leasing?
So my experience has been, and I teach community development, so let me preface it with this. Every community development or CDC housing program is based on the people owning home, eventually being able to own the house. My experience, boots on the ground over 20 years of dealing with that, is that not everybody wants to or can own a home. So what happens to that significant portion of the population? They get priced out and priced into areas where, and that to me, so I think our whole housing policy needs to shift to say, okay, yeah, a portion of it, we should try to encourage homeownership because that truly is where wealth is built. But there are people that they want to rent, they don't want to own, you try to get them to own and they default, whatever. So what happens to that particular population? So my vision is to cater to those folks. These specific duplexes I want to put on VHASH, which is Veterans Housing Assistance Program, which is basically Section 8 for veterans. Because I have a friend that works with that program and they have difficulty finding housing. And so that's the hard part, build them and then have what we call supportive housing, small supportive housing, which is the Veteran Housing Assistance Program. So that's my vision with these particular duplexes for me to own. Now, with that being said, every time I tell somebody I'm doing that, they say, oh, I want to do that. And so could I white box them and start selling them? Yeah, I can, but I want to do them myself first because it only takes one bad deal. Like, y'all see all that good stuff about me and my bio and all that stuff? It just takes one bad deal and Wayne Don't You Feelings in my door. And I'm just real nervous about that.
Not him anymore.
Yeah, not him, but whoever, whatever the guy that's in the trash can looking for.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want that dude,
So is the Section 8B housing, is that guaranteed?
Yes.
Is that a guarantee?
The government pays their bills on time, we've been in a shutdown. Well, almost. Section 8 almost got a little close for the first time here. But yeah, I have a former client has 43 houses, 42 of them on Section 8, all direct deposit on the first of the month.
And that extends past Harris County, that's.
Yeah, so, everywhere. Some of the counties have their own housing. So if it's outside of the city of Houston, it's in the ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction. Then Harris County has a housing authority. And then, that's every county. Yeah, most counties have a housing authority.
Do those have to be in city or can they be in county?
In county, but if it's in county, then the county's housing authority deals with it, not the city's. I'm not a Section 8 expert, but I know that for a fact, yeah.
I came from Florida and I used to do a lot of Section 8 housing with seniors.
That's another population, by the way.
Great. That's a great tool.
Another population.
But you don't get a sprayed rent runs on those.
Yeah, well, I will say this, you can't charge a difference, but I had a guy who bought a 20 unit inside the loop, and he did, the only restriction you can put from a protected class is age. He did over 55, affordable, over 55, and they, and it was full, never had any issues, cause they're happy, good tenants, you know, they just had, you just had to let them barbecue outside. That was the only thing that, you know, he had a little risk on. But, you know, it was just, you know, but it was just cool, and I was like, man, that's a really, really, good idea. So as it emptied, he advertised over 55, so you can, do over 55, you know, communities.
Is that considered just senior or is that also like retirement?
Yeah,
Same
whoever's
thing?
over 55, yeah.
Okay.
So whatever, because I would say probably 70% of those folks are still working.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. But just that age group, you know, they're not head banging against the wall
Don't
at
you have
night,
to
you
file
know.
the state papers for that?
So-
Don't you have to file the papers within the state that you're creating a 55 and over?
That part I don't know. I just know he did it. I know he did it.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question, right? What's the difference?
I would have to get you with the
Yeah,
real estate attorney to find out. I don't know the answer to that, but I do know he did it. Any questions?
If I bought a vacant duplex inside the loop and hadn't been lived in a while, what can you share with me about occupancy permits?
You bought a vacant duplex.
Bring it all up to code and then you get an occupancy permit? Is that more or less how it works?
So there's no occupancy permit for residential, but you pull permits, each trade pulls permits.
Sure.
So it's no different than a single family, if you've ever done a single family. So plumber has to pull a permit. Well, let me say this because I know I'm invested, supposed to pull a permit. Electrical, you know, all the trades, but there's no occupancy permit. Now, which brings up a good point. If you buy a multi-family, anything over 3 units in the city of Houston requires a certificate of habitability, which is different than an occupancy permit.
3 and over or over 3?
Over 3.
Okay.
Over 3. So up to 3, you're good. Once you cross over the 4-plex, you need an occupancy, a habitability. And the certificate of habitability is basically, for lack of a better term, it's the slumlord provision. And they come out and they check your foundation, your electrical, they check if you have stairs, they check the distance between your
Rise and run.
the rise and run, exactly, thank you. Rise and run, I've been drinking, no, I'm drinking. And so, and make sure that it's a safety where kids can't fall through it. They check basically life safety things. And it's available online. If you Google Certificate of Habitability Houston, they have the checklist online of everything that they'll go through. And they do it every 2 years. And they call it a certificate. You don't get a certificate, you either pass or fail. But if you fail, they come back out, and if you don't, they can fine you on a daily basis, so on and so forth. A lot of people, when they buy multifamily, especially 16, 20 units, they've never heard of it. In the city, it always seems to happen. The city's up on the 2 years, they knock on the door like 2 months later and say, oh, hey, you got $100,000 worth of work you need to do. And they're like, well, I didn't know. You know, no one time. So whenever I submit an offer on behalf of a buyer, I always ask for proof that they passed the certificate of habitability. I'm telling y'all right now, whether you use it or not, that's gonna save you somebody in here some money if they buy something in Houston. And if they don't have it, then I take that into consideration as I'm negotiating, because they may not have it. You still may want the deal, but you need to look at that checklist to see the stuff on that checklist is gonna be done correctly, how much it's gonna cost you.
So does that apply to condos where every unit is owned by?
No, no. It applies to multifamily, single. So if you own 20 condos out of a 40 condo association, then that's another code. The condo association in the city get together, versus if you own all 40 of those condos, you'll be dealing with the city from an occupancy standpoint. I know that's weird. But. Yeah, no. Everybody's they're on the ropes. They're doing the Stevie Wonder like this. Yeah. All right.
Everybody give Kevin a hand. Everybody got something out of that? That was good, right? Yeah, pretty good stuff. Again, we have our meetup. Next meetup's gonna be the 2nd Tuesday of next month. I'm not sure what day that falls on. That's gonna be the social at La Brisa. If you get on TexasRealtyClub.com, you'll see that listed on there. And Yeah, that's it. So we Facebook Live this tonight. I'm gonna save that video and I'm gonna post it to YouTube so you guys can reference it.